This is the video review of Transformers Prime Beast Hunters Lazerback. And this figure is actually pretty decent. I have some problems with him, but he, overall, is pretty cool. Now this is his beast mode, and I think it looks neat, although I'm not really a fan of the colors. They're not bad, I just wish there were less red and more black detailing to break that up. Like, one thing that would be sort of neat is that under each of these sort of scale plate things, as if there were just a little black outline. And you can even do that on the underside of the stuff here. I don't know if I'll end up doing that. I'm not really good at painting, but I think that would break up the red and make it look just a lot more interesting. Because as it is, it's just a sea of red, which is actually unfortunate for my camera, because my camera doesn't really like the color red, and it may not pick up the color of the figure very well. May make it sort of a muddy red mess. It's done that to figures before. But anyway, this is the beast mode. It doesn't really have much articulation. You can open and close the jaw. The head can move down a little bit, but not really up. But when you move it down, you expose an ugly gap. The arms can go forward, back, a little bit in out. It's not really useful, but you can get a little bit. The arms will bend a little under 90 degrees at the elbow, rotate above the elbow if this little thing here doesn't get blocked by something. It got blocked by that leg. And then the feet are on ball joints. And then the rear legs, they go forward, back, in, out, rotate above the knee, bend at the knee. Then there's sort of an ankle joint here, but it's more of a transformation joint because it clips into position when it's straight. And then you have a second ankle joint, which is really the robot mode's ankle joint. And then the foot's on the ball joint. So the ankles are actually pretty complex on this guy. And that's about it for posability. He has a fair amount of posability, but the problem is not much of it's useful, because his head can't look forward any more than this. It's hard to get all of his feet on the ground flat and make him look forward. His legs here don't have enough posability, and they're not long enough. So I guess you could do something kind of like this. But still, he's not looking forward. And that's sort of the big problem with this guy. I wish he could look forward. Well, it's a problem with him in this mode. He's got other problems. Actually, this pose, he could probably look forward a little bit more because it's bent down. But still, it's not much that he can do. And anyway, well, before I get into the robot mode, he has a little gimmick here where you can pull up his back, and then you have a little missile launcher. And it's sort of neat how it fits into his tail, because you see the part of the missile here that prevents kids from choking on it or something. That, you angle it into the tail, and then it sits well inside of the tail, and I think that's sort of neat. Although, honestly, the missile's on the hair trigger, and this thing back here sort of gets in the way sometimes, so I'll probably end up cutting the missile down. But, yeah, that's how that works. Now, to transform this guy, the first thing you want to do is, well, I guess you can pull this up if you want. You'll have to do it eventually, but first thing you really want to do is take off the tail. That'll be his weapon, and if you don't take it off, you don't have to take it off, but it bumps into this. Yeah, you saw how easily that shot. It bumps into the missile, or it bumps into this, and it just, I prefer this folding up nicely on his back, so just take it off. Then you'll take the legs, bend them down, straighten them out, and I like to rotate the feet back, because he ends up being a little bit top and back heavy, and this gives him a better heel. Also makes you feel like you're doing more when you're transforming him. Lift this back a little bit, which will allow you to bring the thigh parts together, and that's his lower body basically done. Next thing we'll want to do is we'll want to separate his chest, and you want to press down while you do it, because I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but there are little clips in here and a tab here that sort of sit in them. So push it down to unlatch it and then separate it out. Pull this out, then you'll take the head, bring it down into the chest, push this up, and then collapse the chest around it. And, damn it. Then, you don't have to take that off, but I sort of did this in an odd order. I usually don't fold this tail up this far or put these together until later, and I need a little bit of room to manipulate these. You don't have to take it off to do it, just if you do this part earlier, fold these down and down, they go into little slots that sort of accommodate them. If you do that earlier, you don't need to take this off. You put that back on, and then this sort of sits over his head like a head-mounted cannon. And then the last things you'll need to do for the robot mode proper is fold out the arms, or the hands. And I don't like how the hands show up in the forearms like that in beast mode. I like that the red color is broken up a little bit by the purple. I just wish they weren't obviously hands. Like if the back of the hands were sculpted flat, kind of, I think it would have worked, but as it is, it just looks kind of obvious in beast mode. And then this is basically the robot mode. You can fold these up if you want. I like to do that because I think it makes them look a little bit more intimidating. And for the weapons, you can take this and put it into his hand. But the problem is the peg is a little bit off-center, so you can put it in either hand. It's rubbery enough so it'll accommodate either hand, but it really only fits this hand properly. And because this is rubbery, and actually this is sort of an annoying problem too, if you see his thumb, it's actually raised above the rest of his hand, so if you try and take this off and put it into his hand, he can't grip it very well because the thumb prevents the peg from going all the way into his hand, which is one of the many reasons why I prefer this up here. Also, if this is in the gun and he's holding it, then he can't straighten out his arm. But back to this. It can be a little bit hard to get it in because of the rubber, but once you get it in, it actually, I don't like the shape of the tail. I don't think it really looks like a weapon, but it does look like it's part of the arm, which I think is, it's not bad. Then you put this in, and this is Razorback in robot mode. And I like the way he looks. I think they did a pretty good job with the transformation. It's just enough to be entertaining, and because the robot mode changes posture, he ends up, the transformation doesn't feel like a waste. Like there are some Transformers like Energon Krulok where after you transform him, nothing really changes except he changed head, because the proportions and the posture are virtually identical. This guy goes from being kind of horizontal and hunched over to being upright, and it's not a huge difference, but I think it's enough of a difference that it feels like you've really changed his mode, not just stood him up. And I wish he had a bit more complex transformation than just standing him up, because that is kind of a cop-out Beast Wars transformation, but I think he handles it better than some other figures do. Now, there are some problems with this figure. The first problem is these are loose, and these are his ankles. Now, they're not too bad. They will support the figure, but if you're not careful, he will go toppling back. The ball joints are a bit better, and they're actually quite nice because they give you side to side and forward and back, and then this also gives you forward and back. But I do like the ball joints on these. He bends at the knee. I know I was talking about the problems, but the first problem I mentioned was about posability, so let me handle the posability, then I'll get back to the problems of the figure. Yeah, this, you can bend this, but it's supposed to latch here in robot mode, and you really want it latched there in robot mode because otherwise there are more hinges that can fail. You can bend at the knee, rotate above the knee, go forward, back, in, out. The same basic articulation you had in beast mode. Same is true of the arms, except they go in and out as well, and you can bend the wrist up and down and rotate it. And then the head actually has some pretty decent posability, although on mine the ball joint is kind of loose. And that's the basic posability. You can also rotate this as like a turret and move it around a little bit. Nothing much. That's the basic posability. Back to the problems of this figure. One of the problems I have is it's an aesthetic thing, which is the color yellow attracts the eye more than just about any other color. That's okay, it's a nice detail color for Transformers, but what shouldn't happen is if you look into his chest, he has a lot of internal parts that are yellow. They don't really contribute to his sculpt, so they shouldn't be yellow, because what ends up happening is I end up looking at this yellow color more than the rest of the figure, and because it's not part of what makes the figure look decent, and he actually is a pretty decent looking figure, it really makes it hard to focus on the figure looking good. And I don't like how they use the yellow in there. I wish they had used black color, which would have worked better with the dragon head in dragon mode anyway. The next problem I have is that his arms are still a little bit limited by this, but that's not too big of a deal. But what is a big deal is that if you look in here, you can see the ball in the ball joint is already starting to powder. It's already starting to wear down. This figure is not going to last a long time without maintenance, which is honestly really annoying. And let's see, actually those are about all the problems I have. His problems are somewhat severe. I wish he didn't have the problems, but he's not awful. He's not an awful figure, and if he is indicative of what the rest of the Predacons from the Beast Hunters line are going to be like, then I think the line will be interesting, and maybe a little bit fun. It'll be at least decent, but I don't think it'll be exceptional. Now, hopefully Predaking and some of the other figures will be a lot better than this guy, but he's not bad. Do I recommend him? A little bit, I guess. I mean, he's the first taste we have of the Predacons, and without seeing what the other Predacons are like, I don't know if he'll be one of the better ones or one of the worst ones. I would honestly wait to see what the other figures are like. I'd wait for reviews, and then after you see them, figure out which one you like. Because he's good. I would recommend him, but if all these figures just have the basic Beast Wars transformation, there's really no need to get more than one. I mean, this guy doesn't do anything exceptional except be something different than we've had for a long time, which is sort of the sort of good thing and bad thing about him, which is he's getting away with some really cheap things like the just stand up to transformation, but it's kind of okay because we haven't had that in a while. But if all the other figures are like this, then I would just wait for the one that's most interesting. So, this has been my review of Beast Hunters Lazerback. I review Transformers, Power Rangers, Macross figures, just a ton of stuff. If any of that sounds interesting, please subscribe. Thank you for watching.